Hello and welcome to another episode of Coconut Chats. Tonight I'm Chris Malika Bhadra and I'm joined with my co-host Harita. Harita, how are you?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And tonight we have a very special episode for all of you. So it's more about a rescue dog and the accompanying human who travels with her rescue dog everywhere. But before we introduce our guest of honor tonight, for all our listeners, those who've joined us for the first time, a bit about our platform. So Coconut Chats is a podcasting platform which was created to address all the socially repressed issues which are not addressed properly in a typical brown or a white South Asian community. And it is our purpose to talk about these issues, break the barriers, and bring them into everybody's notice. Moving on, I'll pass the baton to Harita. Over to you, Harita.
Hi, everyone. So, like Chris said, today's guest is a bit different to our usual. So Kristina Masalova and Eugene Petrus are a married couple from Kyiv in Ukraine. Eugene is a marketing specialist who takes projects for various businesses while they're not away traveling. So he actually couldn't join us today, but we've got Kristina with us, and she used to write a PhD thesis on Egyptology about dog-headed gods in the Book of the Dead. But after they found their dog, who they've named Chapati, she decided to dedicate her life to real dogs. So now she's focused on popularizing Indian street dogs with the help of Chapati's Instagram page and other creative methods. They found Chapati in January 2017 in Fort Kochi in Kerala, which is in India, where she was dying as a newborn pup. Welcome, Kristina. How are you?
Hi, thanks. I'm fine. Chapatis besides me.
So, first things first, which I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, how did you actually come up with her name Chapati? Because it's a very Indian type of name.
We came to India just a few days before we met Chapati. And we tried this amazing dish for the very first time in our life. I really fell in love with it. I enjoyed eating curries and masalas with chapati bread. And when we found our dog, she had quite a lot of things in common, like the same color. And she had tons of fleas and ticks, which reminded me of the burn-ups on chapati bread. So she was also seen. In some time, we just checked out this name with some local people. All they started to laugh, knowing that the dog is named Chapati. And we realized that that's a perfect name because we want our dog to bring only positive emotions, only love, only joy.
Oh, so sweet. So how many years ago did you rescue her, and how old was she when you rescued her?
It happened in January 2017, so it's almost 5 years ago already. And Chapati was around 1 month or less. She was in such a small age, it's quite easy to define dog's age with the help of her teeth and so on. So we know that Chapati was from 3 weeks to 1 month old when we met her. And she was all alone without her biological parents.
When you rescued her, Kristina, what was her story like? What was her condition? How did you find her when she came to you, or rather you guys came to her? And was she the first ever rescue dog you met, or there were many before her?
It was quite an amazing story because there were many coincidences which brought us to that place where we found Chapati. And it all looked like it was the choice of the destiny for us to meet her. She was nearly dying when we found her because she was overheated, she was dehydrated, she was starving, she was covered with tons of fleas and ticks, she had internal parasites, her leg was arched, like everything which could happen to 1 month aged pup actually happened to her. And at the moment when we found her, she was put on a kind of pedestal which didn't have any steps. So probably a kind of person put her on that place. She couldn't go down, and she probably spent the whole day under the burning sun. So that is why when we found her, she was in a faint, and she probably made her last voice when she called us. If we didn't help her to make her temperature reduce, she could probably die in an hour or kind of that. So it was night, and there were nearly no people. Besides all the people who passed by, they were just looking at us like, are you crazy touching this street pub? So we understood that nobody is going to help, and like it's only on us to save this dog's life. So it wasn't our initial plan to adopt her. It was just our desire to save its life. We weren't thinking about our next steps at that point. It wasn't the first rescue story in my life, but unfortunately, the stories which happened before, there were some conditions when I had to find new owners to those dogs, and I also had one fail story. Maybe 10 years before Chapati, I rescued a small pup who was also around a month in Kyiv. Actually, I named her Shakti. But in one day, it turned out that she was already contaminated with enteritis. And for such a small pup, it's nearly impossible to save its life with such a disease. So like it was a week of struggling for her life, but unfortunately, it ended up very sad.
Yeah.
Good. Nice to see that, that even though you've had that one bad experience before, when you saw Chapati, you thought, it didn't let it stop you from doing it again. And this time you've had a success story.
Yes, luckily.
Like, the next thing that I was wondering is, since you and your husband live in Ukraine, were you on holiday in India when you came across Chapati? Or, what made you rescue a dog from India when you actually live in a very different country in a different part of the world?
It was actually not just a usual journey for us. It was our biggest life journey, I'd say, because Eugene just quit his job, and we went for half a year journey through Southeast Asia. And it was the second night when we met Chapati. We couldn't go back to Ukraine immediately because we even gave our apartment for rent, to have some money to travel, yeah. So our decision to adopt her, it had two different sides. The first side was that I felt that it's a kind of a destiny from the very first moment. But at first I was afraid to tell that to Eugene because I thought that he would name me crazy, because how is that possible to travel with a dog through Southeast Asia and then to take it to Ukraine? But in few days, when we started to understand that local people are not very fond of street dogs, and it might be a very big problem to find new owners for her, we started to check up for different shelters, and we found out that all of them are in very, very bad condition. They have lots of dog, and it's definitely not a good thing to rescue a puppy and then to give it to a shelter where she will still have problems, and she won't be loved, and so on. So like in 3 or 4 days, I told to Eugene, don't you think that maybe it's our destiny and this dog should be a part of our family? He was first shocked a bit, and of course his logics was telling instead of him, like, how do you imagine this? I told, I don't know, let's just try to investigate everything and we'll find the way. So next day we started to Google everything, and it turned out that everything is possible. Yes, it's hard, but it's possible.
I think all of us need that motivation somewhere in our lives, Kristina, whatever you mentioned. But when you decided to just kind of have her permanently in your lives and now you're traveling with her everywhere, it's a lot of financially aware decision that you guys take, right? So what are the logistics involved in those plannings, in whenever you're planning a trip with your favorite animal? So what goes on in the mind? How do you plan it?
So from the beginning of our travels with Chapati, we had to change all of our plans, all. First, we came to when we came to India, it was only because it was the cheapest ticket from Ukraine, one-way ticket. But we actually planned to stay around 2 weeks in India and then to move to Nepal by land. But because of Chapati, we had to stay in India for 2 months in order to make all those documents and so on. Then we moved to Nepal because it wasn't only on our plans, it was also because there was a border where they don't check you that much, and we didn't have all needed documents for Chapati, so we chose the border where we could go through with Chapati, because she still didn't have some documents and our visas were expiring. So it was kind of a hard situation. Then it happened that we had to spend around 2 months in Thailand because we were waiting for an answer from Myanmar about all requirements for a dog to enter this country. In example, we couldn't visit Malaysia because it has an obligatory quarantine for dogs. So if you enter Malaysia, you have to put your dog for 7 days somewhere where you won't see it. And of course, we understood we don't want this, so Malaysia is not in our plans. So like dog brings a lot of change to your plans, to your planning of your route. You always have to think which kind of transport you have to use. You have to use ferries instead of planes, and so on and so on. And after we moved back to Ukraine, we found out that there are no more ways to travel with Chapati by plane, because she's already a big girl, and such a big girl is not let in the cabin of the plane. You have to put her to a luggage department, and this is a kind of taboo for us. So for the last 4 years, we travel only by car. And of course, unfortunately, for the last 1.5 years, we couldn't travel at all, because the countries which have borders with Ukraine, they were closed for us. And like Turkey, which is quite nearby, we had to use a plane and we couldn't use it with Chapati. So traveling with a dog is a constant challenge. You cannot just travel as you did it before. You have to choose everything for your dog, not for yourself.
Yeah, but I think, like you were saying, you know, everything can be done, even though it might take a bit longer or it might cost a bit more money. There's always a way around it. So I've seen, you know, you have a Instagram page for Chapati called Traveling Chapati, which is a very well thought out name. so you've got about 34,000 followers on Chapati's Instagram page, I think. So how long have you been blogging on Instagram for Chapati, and what made you come up with the idea of actually making a Facebook page for Chapati rather than just posting it on you or Eugene's personal pages?
When we found Chapati, starting from the next day, we had lots and lots of conversations with local people. Some would come to us in order to prevent us from taking a street dog, because there are still a lot of people who think that street dogs, all of them automatically have rabies, they are stupid, they are bad companions for people, and other myths like that. The others came to us because they know about one problem in India. It happens quite often. When expats or even tourists come to India, they might say, save the life of a puppy, they live with it, they buy it a leash, they feed it, but then when their vacation is over, they just say bye-bye and put it back on the streets. And I think that this is even worse than just not saving this life initially, because it's a betrayal. It's a very huge betrayal. So, like, just in a few days, I started to realize how huge is the problem. And I thought that there should be, maybe it's possible to make a kind of education for people and to showcase that everything is possible, both for locals who think that these dogs are not that intelligent, and for expats and tourists who think that taking a dog with you to your country is impossible.
Yeah, that's a good reason to start an Instagram page. So I guess, like, you know, you started it as a educational type of thing. Is that how you want to continue the Instagram page, or do you have like other, you know, do you have other goals for the Instagram page while you're at it?
Just a moment. Should we make a pause?
No, it's okay. We can edit this out.
So it's a recording, yeah? Everything is fine.
It's still recording. Yeah, we can just edit this part out when we.
Okay. Could you please say the question once again? Because I was still in the chat.
Oh, that's all right. Yep. So what you were saying that you started the Instagram page like as an educational type of platform to show people, you know, that you're adopting Chapati for the right reasons, and that taking a rescue dog off the streets doesn't have to end badly. And I guess, you know, that was almost 5 years ago. So now that your Instagram followers have grown to 30,000+ people, is that still what your aim is with the Instagram page, or has the aim of the Instagram page developed into something else over the last 5 years?
Of course, everything has developed pretty much. I would even tell that when I just started Chapati's Instagram, I was dreaming that someday she will have thousands of followers. And I thought that that would be perfect. That would be like my mission is accomplished. Now we have 34, and I understand that I'm only at the very beginning of this story. The same happens with our aims. So when I started this Instagram account, I've only heard around 5 or 10 stories, let's say. Now, the more people are joining Chapati's Instagram, they are telling some different stories, and you understand this problem more widely. So at the moment, like I find my life mission in popularizing Indian street dogs. As for now, I understand that this is probably the main part for me now, because I understood that it's not just a regular dog. It's one of the smartest breeds, actually. And it's actually a breed which most of Indians don't know. Of course, most of those dogs who walk around the streets, they have a bit of mix. But still, biggest part of their genetic code belongs to one special breed, which is called Indian native dogs or Indian indigenous dogs. There are different terms for these Desi dogs. And this is one of the oldest breeds in the world. These are dogs who evolved by themselves, not with the help of a human who made some unnatural selection. And this what makes them very healthy. This makes them extremely intelligent, alertive. So in order for them to survive, they had to be intelligent. So like now I'm trying to showcase with Chapati's story how cool are these dogs, and I hope that someday Indians will start to understand that actually these dogs, lots of dogs on their streets, it's not a curse, it's actually their national pride. Here is my aim.
That's an amazing aim. But just a quick question before I move on to the next one, Kristina. Out of your 30,000+ followers, how many of them are Indians?
Most of them.
Most of them. All right.
Yeah. More than half.
More than half. All right, that's not bad.
Then it's USA, then UK, and only on the 4th place is Ukraine.
No, fair enough. The next thing that I would like to know, Kristina, is how does Chapati bring that balance or peace in your life? Like in general, how does a pet impact somebody's emotional well-being, especially in these crazy times, like we're surrounded by COVID, job, mortgage, blah, blah, blah. How does a pet bring you that peace and sanity?
It's quite hard for me to answer this question in the context of Chapati, because I had dogs starting from my first stages of life. So I constantly had dogs in my life, and I just can't imagine my life without a dog. When there were some pauses between dogs, it was always very, very, very bad times, because you had to lose first your dog, only then you come to your new dog. For me, I can't imagine my life without dog. My first dog was my best friend. She was like my sister. When my parents started to shout on me, she would just stay between us and start to growl on them. So she was my real Superman, my protector. And probably at some point when I grew up, I understood that, okay, now it's my time to repay. Now I'm a big girl, and now it's my time to help them, to save their lives and to protect them from cruelty of people. For me, a dog is only positive emotions and lots of benefits for your health, lots of benefits for relationship, I would even say, because every day me and my husband, we have to walk with Chapati, and that is the time which belongs only to us. We can talk, we can plan, we can dream. So this really makes us, this bonds us, this time which we spent while walking her. During COVID times, of course, it was like, I've been for 1.5 years, I've been seeing only my husband and my dog. If I didn't have them, I would go crazy. So yep, it's a balance. It's a lot of benefits for your life. No matter the breed, no matter if the dog has a pedigree.
Yeah. Do you think you would rescue another dog from India in the future? You know, like as a second pet or a buddy for Chapati?
Of course, after I realized my life's mission, as I've already told you, I understood that my next dog would definitely be an Indian dog, an Indian rescue dog. It's just that at the moment, like we don't have enough money for 2 dogs, and it's a big challenge for us to go to India because we cannot go with Chapati, and we're not used to leave Chapati alone. So at this point, we cannot go to India and rescue a dog. But of course, it's in our plans, definitely.
And one more quick question I've got before we wrap up the interview is, you were saying that when you rescued her, you had to stay in India 2 months longer than planned because you had to fill out all the paperwork. So I guess, you know, if anyone that listens to this episode is interested in rescuing a dog from India the way you did, can you explain like what type of paperwork you had to actually fill out and what legal processes you had to do before you could actually take Chapati out of the country?
Yes, but I can only explain in our case with Nepal, because when you consider all this paperwork, you have to think of the country which you are departing from and the country which you are going to. All of them will have different requirements, but there are some things in common. If Chapati was a bit bigger, this could take less time. It was just because she was too small, and most countries just don't let dogs who are under 4 months in order to travel. So first you have to make a passport, to put a microchip in your dog. Then you have to make vaccines. It is a multiple DHPPI vaccine from different diseases, and a rabies vaccine, which is required probably by all of the countries I know. What's next? Some countries might ask you for a rabies titer test, but it's a very, very complicated story. It's not. Most of Asian countries don't require it. And like the last point is getting an export permit from the country of destination, from the country which you are going from, and you have to get an import permit from the country where are you going from. But like each case is very unique. So you have to find the special department of the country, contact to them, and only then you can know all the rules. And it's always risky not to learn them in advance.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it's a bit of a process, but it's good to see that you're a very patient person who will, you know, go through all of this. So for anyone that's listening to us, I highly recommend you follow Chapati on Instagram. Her photos are really cool. She's won a few awards as well, I think, when I was looking at your Instagram page I saw. And just like you were saying at the beginning, you know, you want her to be a dog that brings smiles to people's faces by her playfulness and her name, and, you know, just as dogs do to people, they bring joy to people's lives. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode, Kristina. And we will share a link of your Instagram page when we share this episode as well. So for any of our listeners, if you want to follow them on Instagram, you can join the link on our page. But for anyone else listening, if you like what you heard today, please leave us your feedback under this episode, or you can email us at coconutchats@gmail.com. if you have any ideas for future episodes, or if you yourself would like to be interviewed about something amazing you're doing. But thank you so much, Kristina, and thank you so much for joining us from the other side of the world in a completely different time zone, and for making this work. It was amazing having you on board and hearing your awesome story.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you, Chris.
Until next time, everyone, we will see you again soon with another intriguing episode. But until then, everyone, please stay safe and take care. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.